Hey everybody, welcome to Movie Chatter. We are going to cover something a little bit different this week, a little bit off the beaten track from what we would normally cover, but we'll get to that in a moment. I'm Eric, and I am joined tonight by Lou and Robin. Lou, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Good to be back. Feels like it's been a long time since we recorded, but I don't know why it feels that way.
I don't know. It always feels like that. You guys are my only social life. And then Tim. So like, this is all I get. So every time in between when we record, it feels like a long time. And we normally do Tuesdays, with Thursdays our backup week. And once we started that now regular schedule, we immediately went to the backup night.
Like the very first week, right?
Yeah. Well, Lou had a family emergency.
Hey, so I just took advantage of what you were doing. So
that's true. And by family emergency, we mean you got a PlayStation 5, but
yes.
Yeah. Robin, how are you doing tonight?
Robin's having internet issues. She just left again.
Oh, we're having some network connection difficulties, so I'm not even sure if Robin is seeing us. She
came back, and then she's here again.
She looks frozen. Again. Wow, this is going to be really interesting if the whole show goes like this, because here's what we're covering tonight. We're covering a movie called Rebecca, based on Robin's recommendation. And it's based on a book from a long time ago, but not in a galaxy far, far away, because that would have been nice. But no. It would
have been cool.
Yeah, no, this is, let's see, the movie was based on a Daphne du Maurier?
Sure.
A French author,
Frenchman.
Which is why I can't pronounce it. I can fake a lot of different languages when I'm reading it, but I can't do French. So the book is also titled Rebecca. Now, Alfred Hitchcock did a movie of this back in 1940, and apparently it was pretty good. Some critics have said it's one of his best films. Not one of his most popular films, but looks like we've got Robin back now. Robin, are you back?
I'm back. I'm here.
Welcome.
I was lost in a vast desert of.
We are still recording. We kept going without you. We figured you would return.
We did. And so I was giving a little bit of an introduction. I explained that it's based on an old French novel, and that Hitchcock did it back in 1940, and that critics really praised it, said it was very good. Robin also praised it.
It is very good.
Said it was very good. So
before you go on though, so the original movie on Rotten Tomatoes had 100% on the tomato meter and 92% in the audience.
What?
Score. Yeah.
Did I watch the wrong one, Lou?
It's got 64 reviews on the tomato meter and 25,000 plus ratings for the audience.
That is a lot.
92%. That's good. 92% is a great score for
wow, that's
the 1940 Rebecca.
Okay, that's actually pretty hardcore. Okay, so what is the?
But we watched the new Rebecca from 2020
from October. Yep,
with Armie Hammer and
my future ex-wife Lily James.
Oh, there you go, Lily James. Yep.
That's a Jurassic
this one's got
Park
a tomato
quote.
Meter reading of a little bit lower.
I didn't get it.
A little bit lower.
Yeah.
Of 39%.
39%.
And an audience score, again, a little lower, of 40%.
So here's what's happening here. I only watched the 2020 version. I tried to get time to watch the 1940s version, and something came up on the evening I was planning to watch it, and I did not get to watch it. And I still plan to. Lou and Robin, you have to explain to me whether or not I watched the wrong one. Carrie here in the chat room said the book. I assume she means the book is from 1938. So thank you for that. I wasn't sure exactly when the book came out.
Yes, it was. Carrie. It was 38. Yep.
Yeah. And also Carrie points this out too. How much of that rating is due to the Armie Hammer drama? I don't know what she's talking about, but if there was drama surrounding him, I know that a lot of times that can directly affect Rotten Tomatoes scores.
Well, I mean, his name's Armie, so.
And Hammer.
Yeah.
And by Hammer, I mean, never mind. That was a Dr. Horrible reference.
That's right.
Fillion. I won't finish the quote there. But yeah, so if there were drama issues surrounding it, that could have affected the rating. But the critic score wasn't great either. It was actually lower than the audience score. Though to be a critic on Rotten Tomatoes, I mean, we would qualify. We should put in to do that maybe. Actually.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it would be. Anyhow, What we're going to discuss today is number one, the 2020 version of Rebecca. That's going to be the primary focus. And then we are also going to talk a little bit about the 1940s version, how it compares, which one is better, which one we would recommend you watch, or maybe both, or maybe neither. And then the two of you are going to explain to me whether or not I should still watch the Hitchcock version, or whether maybe I watched the wrong one to begin with, because those scores, I didn't look at that before we started recording. Those scores are
I hadn't even
wildly different. Yeah. All right. So, Robin, this was your recommendation. Why don't you explain to the audience? Because let's be honest, the people listening right now probably didn't watch the movie. Some probably did. Many didn't. But why don't you explain to them what the movie's premise is, what it's about, who's in it? I can go over who's in it if you want. It's up to you.
Yeah, 'cause I've got the original one up, but the premise here really is it's a a mystery, a thriller, if you will. The 1940s version says it's a romance. Yeah, okay, but y'all know how much I love.
I just want to say real quick. I'm sorry. I gotta
Yeah.
call you out on that one, because there are comedies that we watch, and like if it happens to be that like there's a man and a woman and they're walking down the street and they pass each other and one of them kind of looks at the other kind of interested and keeps going, she's like, ew, romance. They didn't even speak to each other. No, it's a rom-com. So this one actually had some romance, Robin. I just want to point out that the romance in this one was a pretty thick element of this story. You can't just gloss over that like, romance, whatever. No, it was...
All right.
Well, it was romance, but it wasn't a rom-com.
It was a comedy.
There's a distinct difference there, right?
So according to the Golden Globe standards for comedies, this may...
Right, it may
surprised
be.
it didn't
You
get
never
nominated.
know.
Yeah,
You could win.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but okay. So it listed as a comedy, not a comedy. Now you got me going. It listed as a romance.
Mystery, romance, thriller, drama. So the idea is this young woman meets this, incredibly handsome man, falls in love, blah, blah, blah.
Must have meant Lou.
Finds herself...
incredibly handsome man.
Blah, blah. Finds herself
Right. Or my twin.
on an estate full of all sorts of memories and staff and drama around the I should say the deceased wife of the man she just married, and who she doesn't know very much about. And there's where the story starts to unravel. Or starts to play itself out, right? So you went through the cast already.
No, we didn't actually go through when you...
because it's you can't really tell.
Okay, so before we do
Hey, everybody, hold
spoilers-
up, everybody. Hey, we're back.
Yeah.
Everything you guys just said didn't get through to anybody because my internet apparently went down.
Oh no.
Yeah. So nobody heard any of it, and it didn't get streamed to YouTube. And
Are we still streaming to YouTube, or is it?
and we're back now, and
back?
it's still going for the people who are live. But for the people listening to this later, I'm probably not even going to be able to extract the audio from it. So, yay,
Well,
technology!
I got audio here, and
Good.
we can redo what we just talked about. So
Good. So,
Sure.
What I was saying when you started to go over the cast and stuff from the 1940s, one assuming that's what you were talking about, is we did not go over the 1920s, the 2020 version's cast. So why don't you tell us about the 1940s version? Who was in it? We know it was directed by Alfred Hitchcock.
Oh, okay. Well, I gotta tell you, the 1940s version is brilliant. You have got Laurence Olivier as Maxim de Winter, Joan Fontaine as Mrs. de Winter, Judith Anderson. Not sure, what folks would have seen her in, but as Mrs. Danvers, and we already talked about that this story really centers around the relationship between those three,
right.
and how these relationships unfold. I have to say, right at the get-go, I've got sort of a mixed feeling about these two casts. I think there were strong components and weak components of each in each of these casts. But I got to say, at the outright, I think Laurence Olivier's Maxim de Winter was just lovely and spot on.
So let's compare the two, because we talked when we cut out, we talked about the 2020 cast, but so the same three characters in the 2020 version is Armie Hammer as Maxim de Winter, Lily James as Mrs. de Winter, and then Kristen Scott Thomas as Mrs. Danvers.
Okay, so where do we know these actors from? First of all, not all of our listeners are as up on Hollywood as we are.
Armie Hammer, he was in a bunch of stuff already. Most recently, I think he was in Lone Ranger, right? As far as a big name.
Did they do Lone Ranger recently? I didn't even. Well, I don't know. I had to actually pull his page up.
2013, I guess it was. Trying to look back what he's done here.
Yeah, like none of this stuff. He did a voice in Cars 3.
Yeah.
The Man from U.N.C.L.E. Yeah, the Lone Ranger. Wow, he hasn't really done a whole lot.
Yeah,
Social Network. He played the Winklevoss twins in Social Network.
Right.
Like, who is this guy?
He was in On the Basis of Sex.
Veronica Mars, Desperate Housewives, Arrested Development. He played student number 2.
I mean, his big coming out thing was the Lone Ranger, I believe, back in 2013. That's the first big budget thing he did.
Okay. All right. Lily James, though, she's been in Baby Driver, which we discussed previously. She was in Yesterday, which we haven't discussed Yesterday, have we?
I haven't seen that, to tell you the truth.
Oh, my gosh. We have totally got to add that to our list.
Okay.
Have you seen it, Robin?
No, I'll watch it tomorrow. Yesterday. Never mind.
I watched it yesterday.
Apparently,
I see what
that
you
was
did
a bad
there.
joke. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'd like to throw that in the hat as a pick if you guys are interested.
Yeah, let's see it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So she was
in
that.
Time travel romance.
There's no time travel. There's no time travel, Robin.
Not a time travel rom-com? I'm not in.
It is not a time travel. There is a little bit of romance in it. But it's not like sappy. Okay. Yeah. So Lily James was also in that. And then who was the third person you just mentioned, Lou? I'm sorry.
Kristen Scott Thomas.
And where do we know her from?
Let's see. She has been in, she's in Fleabag.
Oh, right. Of course. Which is phenomenal, by the way, if you guys haven't seen it.
She was in Tomb Raider. Not a lot. I mean, I know the name, but not a lot of stuff I've seen her in here that's like, oh, okay.
She's got a long list. I just don't remember her standing out in any of them.
Yeah,
there are many I haven't seen. Okay.
So,
all right. So let's talk about the casting then. So you said Laurence Olivier obviously is a very well-known actor, maybe not by the new generations that are up and coming, but he's been around the block. He's well respected. Who would you say stood out from the new version?
I liked Lily James's version of Mrs. De Winter a little better than Joan Fontaine's. I think Lily James had the type of backbone that she needed to have in order to see us through the ending, whereas Joan Fontaine for me was just too mousy, just too unbelievable to get us there, right?
Yeah.
Whereas Lily James really had the strength about her that showed through in a natural way that you believed when she came out fighting, she was capable of doing that.
I will say that while I didn't dislike this movie, I enjoyed it. It was okay. I will say that I do appreciate the fact that this movie really showcased Lily James's range. I think I have a new appreciation for her as an actress. I think she did the mousy moments very well. And then at the end, as you said, the strength that she had to find, you saw her finding the strength and then having the strength. It wasn't just a jump. You saw it develop.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think she nailed it in this movie.
So I think that of the two casts and watching the two movies, they're both set in the same time period. So they're both a period piece. They're both looking back at, historical, I won't say events, but, the way things are portrayed was kind of in that era.
Right.
But the 2020 movie did it in a different way because it was done in today's time. So they brought today's sensibilities and today's, I don't know, some of today's things into that movie, even though it was set in that time frame when, women were not treated as equals in the household, and they weren't as strong as a male character was, and so forth. But they brought more of that to him. So she was stronger in this movie than Mrs. De Winter was in the 1940s version.
Right.
And the acting was a lot different. So I mean, even though the cast in the 1940s version is amazing, Laurence Olivier is an amazing actor, but
Right.
I thought the acting was better in the 2020 version because I'm more comfortable with that. And that's kind of a personal thing, I think, for me. It's just, I was happier seeing them do the roles the way they did them, and I felt I could understand the way they acted more. Some of the things, maybe I'll say it was like they were acting over the top in the 1940s version because of the way things were acted and directed back then.
Yeah, I mean that's part of the.
Yeah.
But I'm going to agree with you, except for when it comes to Maxim De Winter, except for when it comes to Armie Hammer. I thought Lily James and the woman who played Mrs. Danvers played her brilliantly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Kristen Scott Thomas. Kristen Scott Thomas scared the bejesus out of me as Mrs. Danvers.
I thought she was scarier than the other one.
Absolutely. That Mrs. Danvers was way scarier. And and she needed that needed to like Lily James needed that, right? They played off of each other most brilliantly. I didn't like Armie Hammer's characterization of Maxim De Winter. I thought he was brutish. I didn't believe that he was born and bred in the stature that he was supposed to be playing. He didn't come off as an aristocrat to me, whereas Laurence Olivier drips, right? Socialite wealth, from his fingertips, and you believed he came.
Sure.
So that's a perspective I don't have because I didn't see the 1940s version, but I will say that I did believe that he was kind of a rich brat. Like if you look at rich people by today's standards, and I imagine it was the same back then, we just never saw it portrayed in media, much like the way it was shown for a fact women were strong back then, and we don't see that portrayed in media because I look back to my grandparents' generations. I knew some women who they ran the household. And, the husbands might be the ones who put on the front as if I'm the man, I make the decisions and stuff like that. But I tell you what, they made the wrong decision. They did not want to show up at home to deal with the wife because, so
but
women were
house,
strong back then. They just weren't allowed to show it.
Exactly.
But yeah, so I bought the bratty side of Armie Hammer's. Brat's not the right word. What is that? The entitlement?
Sure.
Entitlement's a better word.
But it almost seemed like the difference between Laurence Olivier, if you want to think about it as old money and new money, I really felt like Laurence Olivier captured old landed money.
Okay.
Really well.
Sure.
And this guy seemed to me as, you were right, the brat.
Yeah.
It seemed like a little bit of new money set in an old money atmosphere.
But I didn't get the anger issues that Maxim De Winter was supposed to have from Laurence Olivier's character. He didn't portray that very well. It seemed like it was all of a sudden where'd that come from? That didn't even make sense. Whereas Armie Hammer's character brought that out more gradually, but then it was pretty explosive when he brought it out too. So it made me feel like it was accurately portrayed, him getting angry with her. Whereas Laurence Olivier's character, I'm like, that seemed like it was out of the blue, Yeah,
I can see that with Armie Hammer's portrayal. I have a hard time as I think my way through the 2020 version. I have a hard time kind of imagining Laurence Olivier doing that. So I have to wonder, like, how different is the character? Because the way the character development in the 2020 version happened, and I'm going to try to avoid spoilers because, again, I know this movie is a little bit off the radar of what we normally cover. So a lot of you out there haven't watched the movie. And I mean, we haven't really even given our reviews of it and whether we think you should. But let's assume for the moment that you should. I don't want to spoil too much about it, even though, as Carrie pointed out to me after I got really upset that Snowpiercer, of all things, spoiled it for me. The book has been around for a few years. One of these versions of the movie has been around for a few years. So, spoilers, we can only have so much sympathy for you and for me, sadly. But I guess the Maxim de Winter character comes across as a guy where you don't really know, is he the bad guy? Is he the good guy? He has what is potentially an explosive temper. The things he does in the movie, like there's a point where he tells her to go back upstairs, and that's all I'll say about the circumstances for it. He's livid. He's angry, but it's not like he yells at her and he doesn't beat her. He doesn't do any of the things that you wonder, is it going to turn into this? Is he, abusive wife beater sort of thing? But in that moment, it's just him standing there without movement, telling her to go back upstairs. And he's very, very direct and stern about it. But it makes you wonder, like, he could still be the bad guy because it was only that, though it was, an embarrassing situation for her. So it still wasn't. But then, like, as you learn about it, you kind of have a bit of an understanding of why he reacted that way. So it's one of those things where, well, wait a minute. Is he a good guy? Is he the bad guy? I don't know that I can see Laurence Olivier's version being able to have that is he or isn't he thing. And like you said, Lou, like the stuff at the ending, I would have a really hard time buying that. I don't know. So I wonder, are the characters different? It's the same book. Lou, you said it's almost shot for shot the same movie, but I have to wonder, is there
the
maybe...
first half was pretty much, it differentiated a little bit in the second half. Because when I said it last time, I had only watched the first half of it.
Oh, okay.
Right.
But yeah, it was pretty close to being shot for shot. I mean, we kept talking about this wasn't really a remake, but it was. I mean, it wasn't like they changed the story. It was almost a, they didn't. Well, it wasn't a remake because they didn't remake the movie into something different, but it was a reshooting of it, I guess. Really, when you come right down to it,
it wasn't a reboot.
Yeah,
but it was a remake.
Right, it wasn't a reboot.
It wasn't
a reboot.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like if you think of something like 21 Jump Street, that was a reboot. That was, we're going to take it, we're going to make it something new. A remake is you're taking that movie and you're making that movie again. Right. At least that's my own personal definition. So,
sure.
So now, and I won't bring up any spoilers right now. We may do some at the end, but I have a hard time classifying this as a mystery.
I could see it as a thriller.
But think about the end.
Yeah, but very little bit. I mean, I'm like, wait, where's the mystery? I'm like, oh, well, that was it. I'm like, okay.
But when it turns, right? It turns from the beginning of the second act when we make some discoveries about the relationships and Mandalay and just the space that everybody finds themselves in, with this shadow of this deceased woman. We don't know at the beginning. We don't know what we don't know. And so I like the way this turned a little bit, because it wasn't this abrupt turn. It's almost like you're descending a staircase on a spiral staircase, for me. And I love that slow turn.
Well, I think maybe we have to look at the word mystery for a minute too, because I think the definition is kind of changed over time. When you think back to when Hitchcock was making films, like mystery means there's some dark thing going on that you don't know and you don't understand. But over the years, I think it's kind of evolved into a whodunit genre. When I think mystery now, I think erroneously probably, I think, okay, there's a plot twist and I have to figure out what it is. And that's not what mystery used to mean, really, right? So are we using that term incorrectly?
Well, the book is a mystery. So in 1938, right, the book is classified as a mystery. Both of these films are classified as, a mystery.
But mystery doesn't have to mean detective story. And I think that's what it's evolved to mean. Like when you see it's in the mystery genre, we automatically assume, it's a whodunit. It's something where, we're going to be led along a path and there's going to be a plot twist. And at the end, we're going to find out who the murderer is, blah, blah, blah. Like it's narrowed in the scope. Whereas a mystery, really, if you look at it, the etiology of the word, it means something mysterious, something that you don't understand yet. In that regard, this is a mystery.
Even so, I think there's, mysteries that are, certainly the whodunit thing has become kind of the classic mystery thing, but there are other mysteries where there's a mystery going on where we know we're looking for something, whether it's a whodunit or murder or whatever, but there's something going on, you know what it is. You don't even know what the mystery is in this movie until you get to the very last, 15 minutes of the movie. And it's like, oh, okay, so that's, it's one of those things where there is that quick turn at the end. But for the whole movie, I'm watching, I'm going like, I got it an hour in, I'm like, so what's the mystery? It's like, I don't get it. It's like, okay, the other woman died, he's got a new wife, and things are okay, and it's a little weird in the household, but okay, and there's a creepy housekeeper. But I'm like, what's the mystery?
It was
There's
like
no
the
mystery
fact. I think it was supposed to be. And by the way, I said etiology. I meant etymology. I know etiology is a medical thing. Etymology is what we're talking about. Of the word mystery, I think it's about something is amiss. Like she's there and she's the wife, but the circumstances that like nobody wants to talk about the previous wife, the ex-wife, the widow. Nobody wants to explain what happened, especially not Maxim himself. He treats her wonderfully, except when he doesn't. Why is that? It doesn't make any sense to the viewer. At least that's kind of the premise. And then there's the whole thing with what's her face, Mrs. Danvers. Why is she not accepting of the new wife? And then she is, and then she's not. And then like there's a whole thing there with Mrs. Danvers, and you don't know what her connection is either. But that's the mystery.
But don't forget, the mystery here is from a certain perspective. So the mystery part of this was for the new Mrs. De Winter. The new Mrs. De Winter needed to figure things out in order to find her place, right?
Yeah, but to me, that's not a mystery. Things like the Da Vinci Code is a mystery. There's things going on that we're learning
that's detective
about
work.
The thing that
we're back to the detectives.
It's not like the mystery of who this character is and what she did and how the family was. It isn't really a mystery. You could have the same thing talking about, Rey in the last Star Wars movies. She's figuring out who she is and what her family is. And
but technically, there's a mystery to that. Technically,
but the movie is not a mystery. Is what I'm saying.
I think that's because we have hijacked the definition of mystery, and we've made it into its own genre. Like it's a misnomer now. I think I
think that
sabotaged the word as a culture.
Look at Rear Window. That's a mystery. There's a thriller mystery to be solved. But just learning who a character. You could have any movie. You're learning who the character is, and that's not a mystery.
But that's the thing. Not everything mysterious is something that gets solved. Now, if we have mystery, it's something that is to be solved. Whereas you could argue existentially, like the universe, there's mysteries of the universe, things that are mysterious to us. It doesn't mean that we're going to solve them.
But hold on.
But I get what you're saying, Lou. Like I agree with everything you're saying. I think that we've set that expectation for ourselves culturally because mystery means something specific now that it didn't necessarily mean the same thing back then.
Now, but we get our mystery in the beginning of the second act. And when you're ready to spoil this, we can talk about what that is.
I don't know that we want to fully spoil it all that much, or we're going to lose our audience too.
Well, you get your mystery when you then have to discover how the original Mrs. De Winter passed.
Right.
Like that had to be solved.
Right, but that's what I'm saying is that we went through the entire first half of the movie with no mystery. I'm like, okay, this is kind of nice,
Okay.
but I'm like, okay, it's like I'm still waiting for where's the mystery? Where's what's going on?
We're gonna have to move on from this point, though. But I'm with you.
I get that, and I don't mind slow movies. I mean, I like Meet Joe Black, so I mean, I mean, I like slow burns and things that build up.
Lou, you're killing me.
I'm sorry.
Now let's move on to that, though. I will say this about.
Oh, we should cover Meet Joe Black. Yeah.
Oh yeah, let's do Meet Joe Black.
I'm not going through that again. So, but let's talk about that a little bit, because this movie really, for the first act, has such a slow burn. Like I wasn't going to give up on it, but I was like, they could have taken the first 2 acts of the movie and shrunk it down by quite a bit. They could have cut a third out of the second act and at least a solid half out of the first act. It felt like. Now, I'm not saying, like, if I'm going to actually sit down and look at it narratively, no, I don't. Honestly, I'm not trying to suggest that you could literally cut that much out, but how I felt as I'm watching it, I'm like, come on, you guys got to get somewhere at some point. Like, do something.
See, and I liked it. I mean,
when it ramped up, it was good.
It was good storytelling to the point where I was enjoying it. But then like we just talked about, I don't want to believe the point, but I was like, wait a minute, is this a mystery? I'm like, but I was having such a good time, I didn't care because I was enjoying the movie. I thought the setup was good, the actors were doing a good job. I thought the acting was great.
It was
the 2020 movie version, But and then it's funny. I went, wait a minute.
Okay,
I just got bored up until things started happening, and then I was hooked. And I enjoyed it, and I accepted the fact that I know it's going to be a slow burn, and so it was okay. I'm not complaining.
But this is a period piece, right? And even it's an original form. It's a period piece, and those pieces have to set the grandeur.
Yeah, Michael Bay. This was not
to establish. This is not Michael Bay. But well, there was a Michael Bay part, but it really was this moment where you can lose yourself pretty easily in the brilliance of like they were in Monte Carlo, right? They were just in really beautiful spaces, and those beautiful spaces tell the story in and of themselves. Mandalay was a character in this, was another character here, and so Mandalay needed the time in order to show itself to the audience.
Mandalay, for those who don't know, that was the estate, like the mansion,
the name
grounds,
of the estate, the De Winter. And so, and again, I love pieces that bring me out of my day to day. If this would have happened between, Manhattan and Rhode Island, I could have probably cared less about it. But this, it kindles, the imagination and a little bit of jealousy.
I mean, to me, like now, if I want to kindle that imagination in myself, there are like 4K 10-hour long YouTube videos that I can put on my TV and watch, like, flying over Ireland or Italy or whatever.
Yeah, or the Blue Planet or one of the National Geographic shows.
And not to diminish the effect of that in the movie, but to me, that's not enough to sell it. It helped. And it was, gorgeous countryside and very scenic views and stuff. And it made me very jealous. And it helped. It was a contributing factor. That alone to me wasn't that big a deal, but it was the combination of that. Again, the acting by Lily James in this was stellar. I was already a fan of hers, and then with this, I can't wait to see what else she does with her career. I think that this really demonstrated the scope that she has as an actress, and I was really impressed.
Yeah.
I liked the third act of this movie a lot, and I will say that for me, it was good enough to have made it worth sitting through the first act. Because the first act was not bad. I'm not critiquing it, but I was bored. Really, really bored. And that's okay. But let's get back around to what we think of this movie, because we do need to wrap up the episode here.
Before we get, can I do one thing before you get there? I know you didn't see the 1940s version, Eric, so I apologize for this, but the use of music in older movies is so much more heavy-handed than it was in newer movies.
Yeah.
And I felt that taking me out of the movie so many times, that they have these, these overtures that happen when things. I'm like, okay. I mean, yeah, it's like almost like you're slapping me in the face when you want me to realize, oh, this is something going on for this character. Oh, pay attention to this because the music. I'm like, easy does it there.
Now,
so
and maybe it's me. I haven't seen a lot of Hitchcock stuff, and I haven't really seen anything else from that era. But I mean, didn't Hitchcock kind of exemplify that? Or epitomize
Absolutely.
it?
Hitchcock gave you clues as to what was going on.
So that's very much like a Hitchcockian sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I haven't watched any other older movies lately. I mean, I don't mind old movies. It's just this one. I thought it struck me as really in your face. That okay, you want me to pay attention to that? So
yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. You can go on.
No, that's all good. I was just wanting to know what your thoughts were. Would you recommend it to people? I mean, bringing it back to the point at the beginning of the episode, I only saw the 2020 version. Should I have watched the 1940 version instead? Should I still watch it? And which would you recommend to people? Robin, why don't you go first?
You know what? Watch both. You gotta watch both.
Okay.
Alfred, if you're gonna say you love movies, and you can say you hate.
Oh,
Alfred
now
Hitchcock,
she's saying like you're not a movie fan if you don't do this.
All right, look. It's
I just got like she just threw down.
It's like saying you're a worldly movie watcher and you've never seen an Akira Kurosawa or.
I've never seen an Akira Kurosawa.
But you're not categorizing yourself as this, sort of worldly.
No, I'm not.
Film buff.
No.
Alfred Hitchcock is a study unto himself.
Very true.
And and I've seen so much Hitchcock. And that's just fine with me. I'll watch him, forever. Except Psycho, can't really get through that one. But the deal is he's a master. And this is yet another of one of his movies that people like to forget about because they love to remember The Birds and they love to remember Psycho and Vertigo. But, this is one of his finer, I think his finer pieces. And I think it's worth watching. I think the 2020 version stands on its own. A very good movie. Regardless, I don't see a huge difference in the directing, except for, as Lou maybe has pointed out, with the heavy-handedness of the music. They simply told the story as it was written, and I dare say probably stole a few directorial snippets from Hitchcock in order to get those turns in there that he was so good at getting. I would recommend them both.
Okay. All right, Lou, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I think if you want to be a student of film and experience this and kind of compare and contrast, see both. I mean, I don't think the other one was as good as the new one, even though, I mean, obviously a much more well-known director and so forth. But the new one is definitely a more modern take on it. It feels more like the movies we're used to seeing. So if you're a modern film student or modern film person, see the new one. You'll appreciate it. Mm-hmm. See the old one to compare and contrast if you want to. I mean, they're both good. But the old one definitely shows its age. The special effects for the fire scene were a little bit rough, and there's a lot of things going on. But
it did. It showed its age.
It was good, but I think I like the acting. I think I like the acting in the new one better, and the script in the old one better. I think the dialogue was better in the old one, and so forth.
Interesting. Okay. All right. So for our audience members who are not film buffs and film students and all that, it sounds like you would both still recommend the 2020 version, even if people might not be interested in going back and watching something that's 60, 70, 80 years old. I have the math right there. So even if they're not going to do that, they should still watch the current version, right? You still say it's...
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
Absolutely.
right. Okay. Well, I think that's going to do it for our coverage of Rebecca. You know, we keep putting off Six Underground.
Yeah, we
I'm
do.
going to make a command decision and say we're doing Six Underground next week.
Let's just do it. Yeah.
Because it's that's been dangling over our heads for so long, and I wouldn't mind watching it again. Like
I've been begging for it.
Yeah, I'd like to see something a little more intense, a little high octane. But after that, I'd like to. I mean, unless you guys have something else you'd like to throw in before yesterday, I'd like to watch Yesterday. At some point,
I'll watch that.
soon.
I haven't seen it, and I wanted to see it, so it looked good.
You know, just to set expectations, it's very kind of low key, not really intense, almost independent film.
Loki's in that? It
I
just
didn't know
Tim
Loki was in
Tesseract?
that.
Gosh, you'd think Tim's on this episode. You know, by the time we get to watch it, though,
Well,
Loki
I
might.
look like Tim, and she's married to him, so you're trapped.
Yeah, she's used to it by now.
Yeah, no,
And
I'm
then
in
meet
favor
Joe
of doing
Black.
that.
Oh,
That's what I heard.
man. I watched
wouldn't
this, so I
mind-
didn't
like
have to
that
watch
movie.
Meet Joe Black.
I like that movie. I really do.
Okay, we'll discuss that later, much later. Okay, well, that's going to do it for this episode of Movie Chatter. Thanks for everybody who's been hanging out in the chat room with us. If you are listening to this as an audio podcast, please consider watching us on YouTube. You can even listen to us on YouTube, just like you do a regular audio podcast, right? But then you also get to see our beautiful smiling faces and me. So, randomchatter.com/YouTube. Hit that subscribe button. If you like it, hit the like button. If you don't like it, I'm not going to ask you to, do that. But hopefully, if you're still listening, you liked it. So hit the like button. That would be a big help to us. Another thing that would be a big help is if you go to randomchatter.com/store and pick up a t-shirt or a hoodie or a sweatshirt or something with any of the show logos on it, or go to randomchatter.com/Patreon. We are about to change some of those perks here pretty soon. We're bringing back Behind the Curtain and some of the other bonus content. And everybody who donates through Patreon becomes a member of the Random Chatter Network. We're a nonprofit organization. So by doing that, you become a member. And we have a whole bunch of extra stuff in Discord as far as different channels and stuff that we've thrown in just as a thank you to anybody who donates. So even just $1 a month unlocks a whole bunch of extra stuff in our Discord server. So check that out too, randomchatter.com/Discord. That's a great way to communicate with us, get us feedback, hang out. A lot of people just drop in, hey, good morning. And, there's a memes channel and people argue about television or movies in a very civil way. But hang out with us there too. And that's going to do it for this episode. Lou is yawning here. I know he's had a long day, so we should probably pull the plug here. Robin looks like she's ready to go too. So
I just woke up.
yeah, that's the thing. Ready to hit the ground running, right? All right. We will see you again. Hopefully, again, for the live viewers, Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. Otherwise, we will see you next Tuesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. That's GMT -5 for 6 Underground. So until then, take care.